Let me tell you a story of how sword fighting saved my masculinity. The lowest point of my entire life was in high school, but there was a build up to it. It all started in my middle school, and I was a huge gamer from my childhood even. But of course, I didn't had access to my own computer with games, only just periodic time, sometimes weekend, playing on my grandparents' computer or something like that. So I didn't spend hours in it just because there was limited access to it. But later on, when I got my first own shitty laptop, which I still use to work for this YouTube channel, I started to play my games even more. But of course, being in middle school and starting my high school years, uh, my time was running out. There was so many classes, so much homework to do that I didn't have time to play. But I still tried to play because I was lost basically. I didn't have any masculine friends nor any masculine coach. All I had were just teachers and my school. And because it was a musical school, I've spent roughly 10 up to even 12 hours per day in school, which was brutal. So when I finally came back home on Friday evening, I could spend in one gaming session at least 6 hours on end from 9 p.m. to 3 up to even 4 a.m., seeing how the sun starts to rise up until my parents catch me. And this cycle was repeating itself for many years. I was chasing fake achievements instead of chasing real mastery, at least in my recent craft, which was double bass. But I wasn't passionate about it, which is natural because we grow up, we see who we are for real, then we choose the new path for ourselves. But gaming wasn't really fun for me. It was a distraction from my own life, but it was a bad distraction, basically. I didn't become masculine to become better in my own skin, in my own mind. I just became better at gaming, at leveling up my video game character. So my masculinity was going into optimizing my gameplay instead of myself, which was a lot easier to do because of how the system, modern system, is working today. It's a lot easier to escape from achieving our own achievements, like doing specific tasks to achieve our goal, to become a better man, a better person, than to just stick to scrolling and this fake dopamine. And it was all because of being lost, of faking my own achievements through playing video games. So, of course, I didn't have no self-respect. I didn't have any path to go to. Like, I didn't have any goals set up because I didn't knew what I was doing with my own life. So I was just escaping from it. But when I finally stumbled upon HEMA, so historical pre-martial arts, or historical fencing in other words, I saw people, real people, that were training and practicing real sword fighting skills, which was mind blowing for me because I thought that sword fighting was just only in video games or in movies. And Olympic fencing wasn't as interesting for me as medieval fencing, like historical fencing. When I finally finished my high school and went to the university, I started to practice sword fighting myself. And of course, at the beginning, I sucked a lot for a long time. But through repetition and through constant training, I started to beat myself up, to reclaim my masculinity through the sword. And for the first time in my own life, I started to feel my confidence rise up, my self-respect for myself. Not through the words that I spoke, but through the actions that I took, which led me to thinking better of my own self. Sword fighting wasn't just training for my body, it was a therapy for my mind. It rewired my brain to actually crave more progress in something real than just spend hours in front of the screen. With time, I started to game less. I started to at least limit my gaming, to not play as much as earlier, but to focus on a real skill, which was really hard, of course, to progress. Because at the beginning, progress always feels slow, but that's when I just built my confidence up in that I'll finally see the result one day. That if I just stick to training it, to going to these classes week by week, brick by brick, it creeps up on you. And I'm a perfect example of this. Sword fighting was reclaiming my masculinity hit by hit, like training by training, just by doing the tasks, the actual actions to go further, to change myself and my own life. So the next point is that what masculinity really used to mean and how it got twisted in the modern day uh, really shooks me, because masculinity is presented as something really toxic. Like people think that masculine man is the loudest one and the most aggressive one, or the most strongest one. Well, yes, he usually is the strongest, but masculinity is not about that. The real masculinity is about being present. It's about being strong in your mind and in your body. To have resilience for the world surrounding you. To have hope. To have courage when you fear something. To still do the proper actions, the proper tasks when it's required of you. And it's also about being a leader and a mentor for your loved ones, for your close ones. It's about leading your people, not being just a petty tyrant, but to be a strong, focused man who wants to improve himself, but also his brothers beside him. That's what really masculinity looks like. Today's modern world also uses this masculinity inside of every man against us. Uh, we as boys, as men, we really like to progress in some way of form. And the most easiest way to progress in something is gaming. Of course it is, because there's levels, there's skills that you can unlock, there's scoreboards, there is, I know, new unlocked weapons that look even better and even more epic on your character, better armor, and more than that. And our masculine edge is going into these fake achievements. We're escaping, we're lying to ourselves through playing these video games. But sword fighting, and the sword specifically, isn't like that. The sword is just a mirror of yourself. When you're sparring in HEMA, when you're sword fighting against another opponent, it shows you when you lack, it shows you when you're lazy, if you're complacent, but it also rewards you if you're disciplined, if you go over the edge of your comfort zone, if you just go over the line of success, in other words. And that's what I really like about sword fighting specific, that it's raw, it's pure masculinity. Because in these moments when it's really hard, the same goes for fitness also. In these moments when you could quit. You don't. And that's where real masculinity lives. That you're doing hard tasks that get you to your goals brick by brick. And it's not feeding you this fake dopamine. When you acquire new skill in sword fighting, like you can do, for example, a shield how into your opponent and you successfully connect it for the first time, it's not celebrating your progress like some emoji, you're getting a new unlocked weapon or something like that. It's real dopamine, it's real masculinity, where you finally hit your opponent the way that you intended to, and you win over against him in this exchange. And that's real power. That's real power. Like, you guys need to understand it, that when I started to finally spar and increased my intensity, I started to see my results for the first time, which motivated me even further. It fueled my masculinity even further. And yeah, that's what I'm talking about, guys. The sword is just an extension of yourself. It's not about always how do I win against this opponent. Of course, it should be on your mind. But every fight, and I know very well of it now, that every fight that you ever do is always, firstly, against your own weak self. It's not about winning against your opponents. You have to win against yourself first to progress even further, to defeat your opponent. And that's how my transformation with sword fighting looked like. When I started sparring regularly, I started to see myself as a real swordsman. I rewired my brain into thinking that I'm more capable in my skills, so I'm more confident in my own self. That's what I really wish you could see for yourself. That if you just do the right things, if you just put your mind into doing these things, then you can actually achieve something in your life. Of course, it takes weeks, it takes months, sometimes years. But if you just put your masculine edge to it, just focus on it, then you can really get it. Just like in video games. But now it's yours for real. Like, it's not tied up to a gaming setup where you have to launch your computer to see that you've acquired some result, that you've reached some result, sorry. But you can just pick up a sword or any kind of mastery that you really focused on, and you're there. You can do it yourself. Like in real life, you can show it to others. You can monetize it or do it, or also create a brotherhood of other guys who are doing the same skill as you. That's why I also want to tell you about my community called From Gamer to Sorcerer, which is my own school community where I help guys starting completely from zero, turning them into real swordsmen. So if you don't have any equipment, if you don't have any knowledge, if you don't have any experience in martial arts with weapons whatsoever, then check out the link in the description, which is a perfect program for total beginners, starting out specifically longsword in historical European martial arts. Also, it's a community, so it's a brotherhood of like-minded guys who are doing the same skill as you are. So if you feel lost, that's most common than not. It's about you being lonely, about you not having the right people surrounding you. So that's why you can join and post your own questions, but also access my personalized feedback also. So yeah, check out the link in the description. Sword fighting is a rebellion against weak culture, our modern culture. You clearly know, as well as I am, that it's a lot easier to just scroll on your Instagram, to just launch your video games and play it for hours. It rewards you with fake dopamine right away. But sword fighting strips all of these lies. Like, it doesn't show you any progress bar. You can only feel it in yourself when you progress. That's what I'm talking about, guys. Masculinity is all about doing the right things until you finally start to see the real progress. Because, being honest, at the beginning, when I just was starting out, so I sucked a lot, I wasn't seeing any progress whatsoever. But it was creeping up on me. Like, I was building it up through each training that I went to. And after finally a few months, I finally started to win against opponents, which was a surprise for me. But I didn't start to win against my clubmates from like after one night or one training. It's because I went to these trainings. It's because I just put in my mind into this. I focused to always showing up and practicing with intention. That's why masculinity is also important, because masculinity is tied up to the intention in our lives. We put intention into our work, into our purpose, into our loved ones, into our fun activities. But most of us modern guys, we're leading it into spending it into in front of the screens. And that's what I'm talking about, guys. Like, right now, outside, it's freezing cold, and my hands are freezing right now. But I know that my video would be so much better if I recorded it outside of my room, outside in my backyard. Because I'm trying to send you a message, a purpose that real masculinity lives in these moments when it's hard. And sword fighting is the same. Of course, it's a lot easier to swing my sword being outside and not break something in my room. But also, after some time, when you finally start to realize that you're good in some mastery, you finally start to see the fun yourself. Like, you finally see the real results, which stick to you. So, in other words, you're not sitting behind the screen pretending to fight against epic monsters or pretending to be an epic knight. You're doing it for real. You're doing something powerful. You feel the weight of your sword. You feel the fatigue. But as I said, you feel the real power. You feel the masculine edge. And by that, you can reclaim it. In these moments when it's really hard, when you feel that you can just stop right now and just go back to playing to your video games. I know that you may be fed up with me talking about video games, but it's not about just video games. It's about you reclaiming your masculinity in times when it's 100 times easier to just be mediocre, to just do nothing, to escape from your own self, from leveling up yourself in real life with your true, like reclaiming your true masculinity, doing certain actions, not just thinking about it, but just by taking actions, by just always taking the initiative. That's my message for you. If you could get out from this video one thing, is that you can start and do sword fighting yourself. It's not some unusual, like weird practice to do. You have to just start, like really believe in yourself. That after some time, you'll get the techniques, that you'll get to win against certain opponents. Not always, of course, because there's always someone better than you. But it's not about being just sad. It's about taking action, about always taking the initiative. So if you feel lost, if you feel like there's no one around you who wants to break through his bad cycles of fake dopamine and wants to train something real, like sword fighting. It's a martial art, but it's not as bad as you might think, really. I'm talking from my experience. I went a 2 year transformation from just a boy to a real purpose driven man with a sword, of course. Because right now it's a lot more fun to fight against someone in HEMA than go back to my room and play on my shitty laptop some video games. It's not as fun right now. I've come to the level to appreciate this real art, real craft. That's why I really recommend you to join my community where I help guys just like you from total zero without any experience reclaim his masculinity through training sword fighting and training specifically longsword because it's my favorite weapon. So I know much more techniques. I've described specific drills, specific solo drills that you can do even today, even right now, with a stick without any equipment. But also, I talk about the beginner friendly equipment that you actually need, like a padded longsword and a fencing mask. So I really recommend you to check out the link in the description if you want to find out more. That's a real community where we train this art for real. So if you want my personalized feedback, then join the community of guys who are training the same skill as you are. So go and check the link in the description. And remember, always take the initiative.